Hi everybody, Forata Live here with another Keyforge video. This time I'm going to be looking at some Mass Mutation decks. Mass Mutation's out. I've got a whole load of decks to look at, open, go through some new decks, check them out on stream here, and let you have a look at what I'm seeing, what I'm thinking about these decks. I'm going to take you through a deck I opened in the sealed launch event that I went to at my local game store. So let me just move that down a bit. So let's have a look at this deck. So like I say, this wasn't one I opened in that display box that I got on release day. Went to a launch event at my local game store, Good Games in Town Hall in Sydney, and picked up this deck. It was a sealed event. We just played a few games, played 3 games. I went 2-1 with it, so pretty happy. Pontecorvo, the conservatively titleless, is the name of the deck. This Saurian Shadows, and I guess the first thing I noticed out the box, if you like, when I opened it up in store, is that it's got some of the sins in, which I was really pleased about. Really wanted to get some of the sins and picked up quite a few nice ones here. But actually playing it, found that the Saurian lineup was really pretty important, in particular the Curia Saurus, and probably talk a bit more about that as we go through the deck, but that artifact having a huge effect on the game, completely changing the game. So let's have a look through this, and I'll take you through each of the cards, talk you through the deck, talk about how it was playing for me. So first up, let's look at these sins. So Sloth, 5 power, end of your turn. If you did not use any creatures this turn, gain 1 for each friendly sin creature. So I found if I was getting 2, 3, 4 of the sins out in a turn, and then that was all I was playing from Dis, I've had nothing from Dis on the board already, that was great, and I'm picking up Amber at the end of the turn for doing anything. Wrath, 3 power, 3 armor, taunt, poison, skirmish, fight for each friendly sin creature, enrage an enemy creature. Don't think I actually pulled off the fight effect at any point, but I think the taunt there is pretty good for protecting the other sins. And now I got Gluttony. Play Exalt Gluttony once for each friendly sin creature, reap, move each amber from friendly creatures to your pool. So that was key, and particularly synergizing with the Curia Saurus that we'll see in the Saurian lineup. I ended up with lots of amber on creatures in this deck, and whether I got them off through Gluttony or another means, this was a real risk to my opponents. So Gluttony proving strong, but needed to be protected with Taunt. Greed. Now this was probably the most powerful of the sins, to be honest, because the other ones become obvious targets. For some reason my opponents weren't taking out Greed immediately, and there was one game in particular where I had 3 sins on the board including Greed. At the end of my turn I'm drawing up to 9 cards, huge draw advantage. And then my opponent didn't deal with it, so the next turn I got to draw another 9 cards. I ended up having something like an 8-card Saurian turn. It was crazy, and again that really turned the game. So pretty pleased to get the sins. Think I've got a good combination there of some powerful ones. And like I say, actually that draw power from Greed was the one that probably was doing it for me. Now let's have a look through the other discards in this deck. Drekka. It's got a reap effect, still 1. Damage dealt to Drekka's neighbours during fights is also dealt to Drekka. Gateway to Dis, really good to see that. And again, that's key in this deck with the ability to wipe the board. Talk about that in a bit. Couple of Cinders. Didn't really need to use the reap effect here. I haven't got too much in this deck that benefits from being destroyed, has good destroyed effects. So I was just really using these for the taunt and for some protection for some of my other creatures. Mark of Dis. This is handy. Amber Pip, play, deal 2 damage to a creature. If it's not destroyed, its controller must choose that creature's house as their active house on the next turn. So that was good. And using this ahead of the gateway, forcing them to pick a house, then wiping the board, that was pretty effective. Pandemonium comes with an Amber Pip. Each undamaged creature captures 1 from its opponent. And then I had a couple of Bone Saws. 5 power, if a friendly creature was destroyed this turn, Bonesaw enters play ready. So coming in after a board wipe, that was proving effective. Now let's have a look at shadows. So first off, Bone Knithing, 2 power, play, steal 1 for each forge key your opponent has, so hoping to get that coming through later in the deck. To have maximum effect, Perplexing Sophistry, which we've seen before, Amber Pip. If you have more amber than your opponent, they discard a card from the hand and you draw a card, so that's always good. Then I had a couple of sacks of coins, so that was pretty good. Comes with an Amber Pip. Play, deal 1 to a creature for each amber you have, so you're going to get at least 1 damage off with the amber from the card. If you've got 2 or 3 in your pool at the time, then you can probably kill off a creature, so that's turning out to be quite nice. Lyco Thief, one of the mashup mutants, 3 power, elusive and skirmish, so good to have on the board. Yeah, nothing too special about it. Rad Penny though, very good, like that a lot. Play, steal 1, destroyed, shuffle it back into your deck, so definitely looking for some more decks with multiple Rad Pennies in ideally. Next up, an artifact, Doom Sigil. So this actually synergizes pretty well in the deck. Each creature gains poison. If there are no creatures in play, destroy Doom Sigil. Oh. So I think what was proving good with this was with having a lot of amber on cards. It's almost another way to wipe the board, or selectively wipe the board, because I can just throw some of these 1 power creatures in shadows against even big enemies as long as they haven't got armor, and if they do some damage, they're going to kill it with the poison. So that was yeah, proving surprisingly effective at kind of controlled board wipes. Reckless Rizzo did get this action off actually, so elusive and action steal 2, and then Reckless Rizzo will lose elusive, so yeah, like I say, managed to get that off and get the steal away, so that was quite handy. Subtle Otto I like, play effect, your opponent discards a random card from their hand, so bit of disruption, bit of hand control. Then I had 2 Shadow Smiths, each mutant creature gains elusive, so that could work either way with my opponent. And then Shoulder Id, 6 power taunt, Shoulder Id can't fight, but when Shoulder Id would deal damage, steal 1 instead. Didn't get that away too much, tended to just be wiped off the board rather than fought off the board, but that taunt protecting some of the other stuff was pretty good. Now let's have a look at the Saurians, because they were pretty key to how this deck really works. And let me just take you through. Hedonistic Intent. So Amber Pip, play, exalt each flank creature, so putting a lot of amber into play. Perfectus Ludo, key card, each other friendly creature gains destroyed, move each amber from this creature to the common supply. Gladiodontus, enters play stunned, only deals 5 when fighting, fight reap. If it's the first time it's been used, ready and enrage it, so you can kind of reap and then fight, or fight and then fight. 15 power, that's a big body. Galeotops, 12 power, only deals 4 when fighting. Got a Thero Centurion, play, fight, capture 1. Citizen Shrix, play, exalt Citizen Shrix, steal 1, so tends to get exalted pretty quickly. Faust the Great, so really handy key control, key cost control here, because again this deck, you can probably tell as I go through the cards, it ends up with a lot of amber on board, a lot of amber spread across your creatures. And your opponent's keys are going to cost 1 more for each creature that has amber on it. And when you play it, you can exalt a creature. So that was one of the bits of key cost control I had. Another Galeotops. Monument to Shrix. So you can spend amber that's stored on there as if it was in your pool. You can move 1 from your pool to Shrix. If Citizen Shrix is in your discard pile, you can actually move 1 from your opponent's pool to Shrix, so you can effectively steal 1 and protect it on here. So unless they've got artifact control, you're going to be able to basically steal 1 and spend it on your keys. Diplomacy, alpha card, play until the start of your next turn, each creature gains before fight, exalt this creature. So again, putting more amber on creatures. Humble, gets you an amber hip. Exhaust a creature. If you do, move 3 amber from that creature to the common supply. So that's pretty handy at getting amber off creatures if there's a lot on them. And one of the reasons that's good is Curia Saurus. So I think this really was the standout card in this deck, certainly from when I was playing through. First match probably went on for 45 minutes or so, because both myself and my opponent were just getting used to the new cards, and this really was you know, causing a bit of kind of head scratching to begin with. What does it mean? What does it mean for my opponent? How to best play around it? Certainly when we had those board wipes coming through, it took a while for us to work out the order of destroyed effects and what's happening and where's amber moving to make sure we were doing it right. So once you've got it into your head, it's fine. But I think this is one of those cards where there's a bit of a learning curve, and it certainly changes the way you play. Now, I found that synergized really well, Curia Saurus, with having the Ludo, because one of the big advantages with Curia Saurus and Ludo on the board is that if you wipe the board or your creatures get killed, you choose what effect triggers first. So you can choose to trigger Ludo first and send all your amber to the pool rather than one to your opponent. If you've only got one on a creature, you probably want to send it to your opponent so you can use the Curia Saurus effect. So that was proving pretty powerful, combined with the gateway. Actually, there were quite a few occasions where I'd got lots of amber on the board, lots of amber on multiple creatures. If I had Ludo out and Curia Saurus, I was wanting to play my gateway, or I was wanting to fight with creatures because of the Doom Sigil and kill them, because I was either putting one from my creatures onto my enemy's most powerful creature and then being able to get it back when I killed it, or if I had 3 or 4 amber on a particular creature, I was just using Ludo to get rid of it and denying my opponent that amber. So turned out really good, and actually meant I was wanting to build up a big board of amber, and then I was wanting to trigger the board wipe and have Ludo out when it happened, and that was certainly a really powerful combination in this deck that took me a game or two to really get the hang of. I think Curia Saurus is going to be a card to watch in Mass Mutation. You can see there's a lot of capture between Sanctum and Saurians, and I think it really is going to make a big difference if you know how to play around it. Again, probably not quite as impactful as, say, Quixelstone or Fangtooth Cavern. Not quite up there in terms of completely changing your gameplay. But I think it makes you need to think about how you're spreading amber across the board. You don't want to concentrate it all in one place. You want to have, ideally one amber on multiple creatures rather than lots of amber on one, which is quite different. And if you're not used to playing around that, you could get caught out, and you could get caught out badly. So yeah, definitely for me, this is the card to watch so far. The most impactful card. I certainly didn't see it coming in the previews. Didn't realise how powerful this effect was going to be until I started playing with it. So I think I'll probably do a separate video on just how it works and how to best play with it or around it and some of those combos. But turning up a first deck at a sealed event, Curia Saurus with Ludo in the deck, with some great ability to exalt my creatures, also having the Doom Sigil to poison, having the gateway to dis to wipe the board. Really pleased with this deck. So let's have another look at the deck list. So there we go. Pontecorvo, the conservatively titleless. Like I say, this was the deck I opened in the sealed launch event at my local game store. Really pleased to pick up this deck. It's got some sins, they're great, but actually it turns out that the Saurian suite there with Curia Saurus, Perfectus Ludo, really driving the deck in terms of what do you do with all that amber that you get on those Saurians. So a really cool deck, really pleased to pick it up. I mean, in terms of some of the stats that we're looking at there, it's got a very high creature count. You've seen as I've gone through, there's like 24 creatures in there, there's 3 artifacts, there are hardly any actions, only 9 actions, so a lot of amber control. I'm pretty pleased about that. Not the quickest deck in the world, but it's got quite a lot of strength on board, mainly from the Saurians again. and just seems to work well with that combination. I think 24 creatures definitely at the top end in terms of distribution, and therefore of course pretty low in terms of the action count. But I'm very happy to have pulled that deck. Probably my most interesting deck and most powerful deck I think I've got so far. Needs a bit more work, to be honest. I need to practice a bit more with it to really get the most out of it. It's a bit tricky to play. I need to make sure I'm getting the most out of that Curia Saurus. I've definitely been caught out myself and ended up giving my opponent a load of amber. So that was Pontecorvo, the conservatively titleless.